Yeah. Yeah. How's everybody doing today? Just getting the live stream up and running. Chris Courtney, New Pragmatic. It's a good old Tuesday morning here in Chicago. I hope things are well where you are. I grab this microphone every single day and I start adjusting it as if it's gone through some like major mechanical stress over the last 24 hours, which it has not. It's so good to see all of you this morning. I've got a full slate. I noticed a job though that came through in the overnight, and I have to draw our attention to it for just a second. Let's come over here. Let's not look at that yet. That looks like hot mess, but it's actually very helpful. Let's come over here to the Discord channel. I'm going to jump straight on up in Design Jobs. We're going to go to Design Jobs, and come on, Discord. You can do it. You can do it. Oh, it's fighting so hard. All right. So there was a job that came through last night. And, like, there was a lot of, like, anywhere jobs. Hiring anywhere. Hiring anywhere. But then there was this job. And it said, hiring an animal-loving product designer. Working from anywhere. Adoptapet.com. And I just want to make sure it's anywhere because they said anywhere, and then I saw it posted in San Francisco and Los Angeles. And I'm just thinking that they posted them there because they thought people would be looking in those cities. And it says it's a distributed team. Via Zoom with your team and spending days in our downtown with our senior product design lead. So ideally you're located in the Bay Area or the West Coast, but if you are ridiculously amazing and not living in these areas, we want to hear from you. I want to flood them. I want to flood them with applications. It's a good mission. I mean, you're helping the doggies and the kitty cats. Or as I found out yesterday, derp cats. You're helping the cats and the dogs and the puppies and the kittens, and I'm sure they have other animals, but that's all I can think of right now. The little doggies. Come on. Anyway, dotpet.com. I told you, more awesome anywhere remote design jobs are being posted every single day. You can find out about them right here in the Discord channel for New Pragmatic. Get on in there. As you can see, they post it. They are looking West Coast, but they said, hey, if you got awesome skills, you should totally apply. JobbyBot brought that one up last night around 7:30. Get your name in the hat on that one. Hell, if I wasn't enjoying my time here so much working with all of you, I'd throw my name in there. In an alternative universe, I'm totally doing that job. But in this universe, I'm working with you every day, and I love it. So let's move forward. I want to we'll come back to that. That's something we're going to talk about in a minute. I want to put a focus on Luigi, who has been doing just bang up work going through the UX course. Luigi turned in his competitor research last night, and he, of course, if anybody's been following along, Luigi did like a round of research at local Whole Foods, two Whole Foods locations there in the New York area, and like was taking all his notes about. He covered 200 shoppers over about a course of an hour. His hand must have been ridiculously cramped up, but he's done his research here. And the one thing I want to encourage you, if you're going through the program and you've got an assignment like this, and this is literally, I'm not kidding you, one assignment, okay? And I've left some notes for Luigi in there, and that's not the important thing. The important thing is when you have something that's this deep, you're probably going to link to it later. you might as well take it and put it in its own document. I mean, look at this. This assignment that Luigi turned in was a good 6 pages long. And yes, I read every single word of it. Absolutely 100%. Wouldn't skip a word of it. And I actually tweeted out about this exercise last night because I could literally hear Luigi's brain soaking up the competitive knowledge, because as he was writing, he was leaving commentary of, well, this wasn't quite as good as that. And that's exactly the sort of thing that I want to see out of your competitive research. I want to see that you're recognizing the differences between like competitors as you're going. What are the things? Ooh, this one's better than that one. You're basically understanding and discovering what the table stakes are. Luigi did a great job. I would simply just take this, put it in its own document, and then link back to it. Because when you get to case study land, and we're gonna take the 7 pages and make it like a couple of paragraphs, and that's like, whoa, what? You'll see what I mean when we get there, Luigi. But my big thing here is take this, put it in its own document, because later you're going to link to that anyway. So you're going to need that second document. We can collaborate wherever your documentation happens to be, and pretty soon everything's not going to be in Google anyway. It's going to go over to Miro, or it's going to go into Figma, or it's going to be some sort of A/B testing. We're going to be moving into some different places, so we need to get handy with just linking out to our other documentation. The other thing I'd mention is, and this is something I told Luigi, whenever you're doing competitive analysis, I want you to be thinking not only who are your direct competitors, who are the people that are obviously competitors. And a way to think about this is, if I was buying a car, all right, I'm going to take it away from the assignment for a second. But if I was buying a car and I was doing my research, one of the things I'd probably do is I'd go, okay, well, I'm going to go to Ford, and I'm going to research Ford cars and trucks, okay? And I'm also going to go over to, VW, Volkswagen? Yeah, Volkswagen. I'm going to go to Volkswagen, and I'm going to look at them. And I'm looking at like competitors, okay? So here's Ford, and I'm considering buying a Ford, or I'm considering buying a VW. Another alternative is to say, how about a Honda motorcycle? That's not a car. But it is a way that I could get around if I wanted to do that, and it probably wouldn't be that particular bike. Although that bike would be great if I was like in Mad Max. But that's cool. Let's get that totally should Talon models to the family. That should totally replace whatever SUV you're driving. It should be this. Hell. And how do carousels work, really? It should be that. That's the new SUV. That's what we're going for. What else? What are some other competitors? Well, frankly, how much would an Uber subscription cost? Not that you should use Uber, because they have terrible workplace practices for their drivers. But what would a ride pass for Uber costs? Or for that matter, I'm here in Chicago, CTA monthly pass. Maybe that's a little more likely. Unlimited ride passes. Instead of buying a car, what would an unlimited ride pass for the local transportation system set me back? And that's what I mean about expanding your set out beyond. In this exercise, we're talking about grocery stores and meal delivery kits and things like that. What stretches beyond the direct competitor for the organization that we're doing this research for? Take it back to the car mentality. I'm not just looking at cars. I'm also considering motorcycles. I'm also considering rideshare services. I'm also considering public transportation options. We're talking about getting around. In this exercise, we're talking about feeding people. What are the different ways that we could do that? And when you broaden your scope out, I think there's a couple of things here. It makes you a better designer because you begin to see what options are really there for people. But it also, frankly, makes you a better customer. It allows you to begin seeing the world for the options that are really there, and not just the ones that are being marketed to you as the choices you have. So something to keep in mind there. I think it's Luigi again. I think he did just a fantastic job. I did want to see you stretch it out, and I left you some notes in there, but it's definitely worth something to take into consideration, regardless of whether it's in this project or it's something you're doing elsewhere in your life. Competitive research is one of my favorite things to do. It's one of the reasons. It's really one of the reasons I accidentally backed into UX. Before I was really doing UX, I had left print design and I was working in mobile design. This is like 2008, and there were like 7 apps in the App Store, so nobody knew quite what to do. And so you just did competitive research on whatever was around you, because there was no real competition. You were just, can I soak up information anywhere? And all of the first apps, they were all terrible. They were all just hideous. And we all were learning from one another and kind of creating that ecosystem. I think our app was like number 16 in the store. So anyway, you have that idea. I think Luigi, I definitely know that you know what to do with it. But as you are joining the program, and I'm sure some of you are going to be coming through soon, just know that I'm going to ask you to stretch out, and the ability to stretch out is looking at not just the primary competitors but the adjacent ones as well. All right, so let's we're going to come back to Featherframe. I keep like teasing Featherframe here. Featherframe is as it says there, a super lightweight starter project for students new to HTML and CSS. And we're going to work with that in a minute. I promise you, we're going to work with that in a minute. It is something that I look forward to expanding upon, but not something that we're going to necessarily jump into right at this moment, because we're going to look at Okta, and we're going to look at Rebecca Barr's project. She's been working diligently on this. I can tell even from afar. She's put in a lot of effort here. Let's go ahead and jump in. Now, Rebecca, I do believe that we are getting. It says here I've got. Well, let me turn back on my guides here and see Graphique. So it looks like I need to load Graphique to work with this. All right, so you've got Graphique in all caps. This is really the letter spacing is really crammed in. Not 100% like rah-rah on it. And like the pop-ins that you have down below, like this to me feels like it needs to come up, which is weird, I know. But it's definitely something that I think as a headline in all caps, it's like for some reason it just needs a little more, or this needs to come down. You're trying to set up that hierarchy, and I think you just need a little more. Additionally, you might need some more space. I'm looking and I'm looking specifically at, like, one, I'd like this all to kind of share. Let's get it all on the same line together. So if this is where the B is on your home page, let's get the B there, or let's get this in the same spot as well. So frustrating. Come on. All right. So that's that. All right. So now we're here. I like the spacing over here. It's just like making it match across, and then adjusting this as needed. Over here on Okta, let's take a look at what you got on Okta. It says, okay, so the problem, and you've got an icon in here, the product, okay, the process. And it looks like you've added some line work here to kind of like add some weight, and that's fine. The labeling definitely is starting to work a lot better than where we were. User flows, this is one of those things where I was almost like, should this be like just a full-on background side-to-side element that you then like reverse out a box to give yourself some room to run? But I think that's something that we can look at in a bit. Content strategy, here we are into the wireframes. We'll talk about that in a moment. Okay, so you went with, so you had a carousel and you adjust it, which is fine. Yeah, we talked about carousels yesterday and how they kind of hide information. And here you're kind of, this is basically where we left it yesterday. And down here, it looks like you are still working on this a bit, but you have I'm going to return home, or I'm going to link to another case study. I always love to have navigation at the bottom on these long case studies to kind of allow you to go where you need to go. Regarding this, I probably would give it a label still. I think that you definitely, the language here is a lot more specific to, hey, if I had a second crack at this thing, here's the things that I would do. But I still want to have like a legit, like what I learned label on here. But yeah, I mean, Rebecca, if you're looking back a week ago at what you had for the whole thing, and then you're looking at where you're at like right now, it's amazing the amount of growth that you've shown in a relatively short amount of time. The thing that I am interested in doing now with you, though, is porting this over into the realm of HTML and CSS. We've talked a bit about how to go about taking this to the next step. And one of the things that I've heard over and over from students over the years is that, and yes, good. The couch bot has announced that we are live in the Discord channel, so that's always good. Thank you, couch bot. The one of the things that I've heard over and over again from students over the years is that, when you're first getting started with HTML and CSS, you're not quite sure how to put your projects together. And I get that. I mean, it's difficult for somebody who's been doing web development for a number of years to hear, oh, I'm not really quite sure how to write proper HTML and CSS. And what we forget, we lose the beginner's mentality. We lose the beginner's mentality of understanding that it's not just the actual physical writing of it. It's the literal hooking together of the parts. Like, how do I get the image to load? And how do I connect my style sheets? And then there's the syntax problems of, gosh, how do I write a media query, and where do I put that information? These things are legit issues. And one of the things that happened literally as I was getting into web development back in, say, 2011 was the world simplified. It's like, oh, hey, just use Ruby on Rails for that. Ooh, there's this new thing called Bootstrap, which is something that was released by the Twitter team. And hey, there's all these open source things. And why don't we just use jQuery? Like, we forget that there's been helpers all the way down the pipe. And we built these things. We built these little helpers to help one another out. Okay? So when we ask somebody to come in and write HTML and CSS, oftentimes we're asking them to, hey, just spin it up from scratch. And then we forget that very few of us actually ever spin anything up from scratch. Even when I build a Gatsby site, it's like Gatsby new, and Gatsby loads all the stuff that I don't think about. So I wanted to make this process just a little simpler for students while still giving them the opportunity to go through and do some hand coding, because I do think that that's one of the easiest ways to learn what the hell is going on. So to get this started, I created this thing called Featherweight. And Featherweight, I'll just quickly walk you through it. Featherweight has a few things that I used to always have students go grab, like, hey, go grab this CSS reset. And in that reset, it will, it fixes the browser for you. And this is the Eric Meyer reset. If you look at it, it's directly from MeyerWeb. So, props to Eric Meyer. His book is literally looking at me on my desk. His book, Eric Meyer on CSS, it's a classic book. And if you like Eric Meyer, follow him on Twitter. He's pretty great, gracious guy. But that's in there. I also created something called Grid CSS. And Grid CSS is stupid simple. And a matter of fact, I should move this margin 100 out. And that's one thing I would say about Featherweight. Feather Frame. It's not finished. I definitely want to go through and do a little more work with it, but it's very, very simple. And the whole point of it being simple is this. I wanted something that would allow you to have some examples of how to write. So how to write code for CSS Grid, how to create a media query, how to connect all these things together. So if we go over back to Feather Frame and we look at the index page, I want to show you basically how to link these things together and not forget the viewport. I can't tell you how many students over the years I've worked with and their page wasn't loading properly, and it's because they hadn't included a viewport. And I get tired of that. It feels like a gotcha. I gotcha. See, I'm proving my worth. And no, you need a viewport, and it should just be there. And if you go spin up any project, it's gonna be there. So why do I have to make you jump through that hurdle? The hurdle I want to make you jump through, and this goes back to what Rebecca's working on and what Jeremy's working on and what a number of other students are working on. What I want to make you jump through is getting your work into code. A lot of people, they avoid this part of the process. They avoid writing out like a case study in HTML and CSS because there's a tool like Webflow over there. And Webflow's fine. I have no issue with Webflow. My main issue is that I've yet to be able to fathom how you could use Webflow without knowing the basics of HTML and CSS. It's like you can't skip over that unless you're just blindly trying to draw boxes and stuff. And by the way, you can't draw boxes. And in Webflow, it's kind of like a Fisker. It doesn't vroom vroom. For those, hey, Childish Gambino reference. Anyway, Fiskers don't make noise when they start. But as we jump into this, I want to just kind of walk you through how it works. And I created an example doc in here, this example HTML right here, and you'll see there's some crap in it, okay? And that crap is there. You can delete the example HTML there. You do not have to use it, but I'm going to give you a peek at it because I think it's helpful. So this example doc if we come back over and just look what's going on here, I have these sections in here. It says to call center, and this naming convention should seem pretty similar or pretty familiar for those of you who know anything about Bootstrap or Foundation. It's all to call, one call, four call, whatever. This is stupid simple. Okay, this is like 3 2-column configurations because that's typically what we end up creating, and they're inside of containers. So everything's in a container. I've got to call center, which is 2 even columns. I've got to call left, which is weighted to the left, so a wide left, narrow right. And then I've got to call right, which is a narrow left, wide right. And if you look at this in the frame, you'll see that these are even. These two right here are even. If you come down, you've got a wide column over to the left and a narrow over to the right, and then you have a narrow over to the left and a wide over to the right. These images are all different sizes, and that's because they have a width on them. If you look here at the image class full, I'm going to try to zoom in here. It says image class full, and here's the source. And dummy me, I did not add alt text. So add your alt text. It's important for accessibility. But anyway, image class full. What image class full is doing is basically saying, however big the column is, and the column in this case is this big, or sorry, the column in this case is this big, make the image the full width of that. This image is gigantic, okay? I just grabbed it, threw it in there. The image is gigantic, but when you say make it full width, it just adopts the size of the container that it's in. So full width here, it just 100% of whatever that container is, 100% of whatever that container is. But this is all responsive too. And it's stupid simple responsive because I did it in CSS Grid. I mean, CSS Grid is a godsend. All right. I didn't have it. We didn't have proper layout tools for the first 20 years of the web. And then we got CSS Grid. So here we come on down, come on down, come on down. And one thing you should notice is that as you get down further, see how it pops? That pop is a media query kicking in. And that media query, if we come back over and look at our grid, so let's look at grid. That media query is the container getting wider. It went from a width of 60% to a width of 80%. And I changed the background color. All right. The background color, that stuff you're going to want to delete away as soon as you get in there and really start doing your work. But that background color is just to allow you to see what the hell's going on. So we go from green, light green, dark green, and if you come down further, it goes to black. Now you may be asking yourself, why did it go to black? Well, that's because it has a media query on it. And not only does it have a media query, but notice that everything now is the same size. And that's because in that media query, it went to grid template columns 1FR, 1 unit wide. So the grid template up top was, if you look at the to call center, this is the even one. It should, I might even just rename that even, but anyway, grid template columns repeat to 1FR. So it's like 2 columns, same size. To call right, 1FR, that's narrow left. 2FR, that's wide right. Narrow call left, 2FR, that's wide left. 1FR, that's narrow right. So when this gets down to its smallest responsive size, it just says, hey, forget about what you were doing before. I want you to be uniform in width. And of course, the image just continues to reform itself to whatever the container it's in. So if this container got significantly smaller, for instance, if we said for whatever reason this container is now going to be, let's do container, but if I said the container instead of 95 was going to be 60, it's that. Or I could say 30. And notice that the photo never bleeds out or anything. It's because you're telling exactly how wide you want it to be. You want it to be the width of the container. Now, if I took this photo out, for instance, which I can do, it just goes full width of the screen. All right? Because the container that it is in, because the container that it is in is literally the DOM. It's the browser, okay? And it has a class of full. If we removed full, if we just turn that off, it gets crazy big because it doesn't know what to do. All right, so we're going to refresh that. There we are. So the question here, now that I've kind of walked through feather frame, question here is, okay, well, Chris, what the hell did we do with it? Well, let's go ahead and start a document. So I'm going to come over to this. I should actually not have done that. I should go, let's go back because I just want to get to feather frame. So I've gotten the feather frame here. I'm just going to click clone or download. I'm going to say that. And then let's go create a new project. I'm just going to do this in terminal. So ls, so I will say mkdir, we'll do feather test. Okay, we'll cd into feather test. As you can see, feather frame is right there, so feather test is pretty close. I'm going to say git clone, and I just want to ls here. There's nothing in that right now. If I say git clone and feather frame, it's going to clone all that down. Now if I say ls, feather frame is in there, and yeah, that isn't really a great way to do that, really, because I just copied feather frame in. For right now, I'm just going to cd into that. So there's feather frame. One thing that you could do if I cd out of this, and again, we don't create projects all that often, so you can kind of see where this becomes an issue. Feather frame. I'm going to remove feather frame, and I'm going to cd back out, and I'm going to say the same thing for feather test. All right, so now I'm going to say git clone, and then I'm going to say feather test. That should, yeah, cloning into feather test. So now if I ls and I go into feather test, so there's feather test, it's already initialized, and there are my files. So what I did, and I forget about this all the time, I cloned in, but then I added the name of the directory that I want it to create, and in creating that, it pulled all those assets in, and now I've just got it. So I'm going to go ahead and open this in VS Code. Let's just find feather test real quick. Yeah, there it is. So let's go ahead and drop that into VS Code. And we've now got feather test. And thanks, VS Code. So here's my example file. Or no, here's my example file. Here's my index file. I'm going to go ahead and hit go live here. And go live has put me over on 5501. All right. Go live is a plugin. It's a live server extension for VS Code. It does the same, like if you've ever seen my Gatsby videos, I'll hit like Gatsby develop, and it'll spin up a server, and I can kind of see it happen live. Go live does the same thing. Go live just works with static files. You don't have to have Gatsby or Python or whatever installed. So anyway, I'm just going to hit here. I'm going to say test, and I'll put like a proper tag around that because I'm not an animal. So test, there we are, and now test is in there. And you'll notice test has green with it. It's like, oh, why does test have green with it? Well, it's because if we come back into our CSS, we look at our grid, our container has color with it. So that's why that's happening. The big thing that I want to do, though, is I want to come over and I want to get in here to, yeah, that's feather frame. I want to shut that down. I want to get in here to Rebecca's project, which was in Figma. Yes, Figma, Chris. And I want to grab this, okay? So I've got the problem and the product. And I'm just going to start off real simple. I'm just going to straight up grab that content. And this is something that I typically worry about a bit. So I often will use something like Quiver, and I'll sanitize things here because I'm always scared I'm going to copy over some sort of hidden character. In Quiver, typically, if I put this into code, it will strip all that crap away. So I've got the problem and the product. I'll go ahead and say the problem, and then I'll say, well, let's see here. That seems, yeah, okay. So that's two sentences down here. The product. All right, now I've got that content. I'm just going to take it straight over to VS Code. Now this feels a little weird for me because I'm so used to just like dropping it into a markdown file and sucking that over with a framework like Gatsby. That's not what we're doing here. So it takes a little getting used to. Okay, so this went like way wide and way long. One thing I always will do is I'll come up here to edit. View, toggle word wrap, and that knocks everything back into view. The problem here should likely be an H2. And I'll go ahead and write the problem back in there, put that there. Let's go ahead and bring this over. That's probably a paragraph tag. There we go. Same thing here. This is a there we go. I'm going to make this at H2 as well, although I put that in the wrong spot, but that's okay. It's easy enough to fix. And we'll do the P tag again. And okay, let's save it. Let's see what we got. Looks like I got a stray P tag up here and test as well. So let's save that, and if I can find my browser. Okay, so that's like a hot mess, right? I was like, ooh. Okay, great, Chris. You got some type in there. All right, well let's get feather frame working for us. This is a div. This is like one div, and inside of that div we need columns. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come to feather frame. I'm just going to look at the CSS really fast, and I know that for something that has what I'm looking for is wide left, narrow right. So in this design, I have to call left. So I'm going to say to call left. I'm going to put this in a section. Class equals to call left, and I don't need that dot, obviously. I'm going to wrap this down below. Now, oddly enough, you're probably saying to yourself, well, Chris, what's that going to do to this? Well, it's not going to do much that's going to be good for us, because it's going to make this thing go all bananas. And that's happening because it's just taking the elements and like placing them left and right. It doesn't really know what to do with this yet. So what I want to do is I want to put a couple of divs around these. So I'm just going to say div and wrap this first one. That's our first option. Here's our second option. And again, I'm trying to be good about making sure everything is wrapped properly, so if I want to come over here and shut these things down, I can. But what we should have is, in this instance, we should have the problem all to itself to the left and the product all to itself to the right. So if I've done my job properly, and that's what we have. That's obviously not the design that Rebecca had going. She had some images over there. Just as a stand-in for the images, I'm going to go ahead and copy over our images that we had earlier. So over here in our index, I will drop in an image and another image. And what we should have now is we should have the two images to the two images are going to be over to the right, and the text is going to be over to the left. And I'll move that over rather than doing it the other way. And that's what we have. We have a design that has my face upside down twice over on the right and all the content over on the left. Obviously, there's a lot of tweaking that we can do. But one thing I would like to point out is that out of the box, this is responsive. So as you go down, it stacks appropriately. As you come up, it does what it says on the tin that it's going to do. Now, can you go in and add more styles? Well, absolutely. Let's take that. Let's take these p tags and the h2 for instance. If I come into the style.css, that's where full is living right now. If I say, hey, I want that p tag to be font let's just say sans serif for right now. I just want to change the p tag to be sans serif, and there it is. I'm going to go ahead and change the line height to something that isn't disgusting. There we are. And I'm also going to come into the grid, and I'm going to get rid of these two things, because the background color is also allowing the color is saying make the color white on top of that background color. I don't need either of those, so I'm going to save it, and now there we are. If I want to come back in and adjust the H2, which I will want to do, I'll say H2. Let's go to font weight. Let's say bold. Font size. We'll say 36 pixels for right now. Save it. We'll come over. There you are. And of course, that's a sans serif. I could pair these things together. I'm not going to right now, though. There's font family, sans serif, and there you get the idea. It's starting to come together. Obviously, there's a lot more work to be done here, but that does give you a starting point for how to structure, how to use this really stupid simple framework in FeatherFrame to get simple two-column designs that are responsive and begin porting your content over. The the big thing, Rebecca, for you is I would like to see you port all of that content over and put it into some rough frame structure that reflects what's in your Figma prototype. Like, I think you can do that in a day. And then you'll go through section by section and tweak. You're going to need to create some styles. That the whole point of Feather Frame is to give you basic framing to dump in your content. So you got buckets, but I need you to style the buckets. And the good news is if you pay close attention, you know how to write CSS. You know how to write a media query. You know how to connect files together. They're already connected. You don't have to go worry about the viewport. You have an example file that shows you how these documents should be structured. Okay? Those things are all there and ready for you. It's not great design. Okay? Great design requires a lot more work, but I'm trying to help get rid of all the gotchas. Oh, that little thing got in the way. Or, oh, I forgot about that thing. Those little gotchas, I believe, are what really slow people down and deter people from wanting to do semantic markup. Or markup at all, really. I really do believe it's super simple. Once you begin working in simple HTML and CSS, you'll never want to touch one of those WYSIWYG editors again. I can't stress to you how much that I dislike working in things like Figma or Illustrator or Adobe, all of that, because I have control over it in code and I just know how to make it work. But it takes time to get there. And the longer you put it off, the longer it's going to take to ever get there. So I hope this was helpful, Rebecca. I definitely want to encourage, and you're going to start seeing featherweight or feather frame. I keep saying featherweight. It is inspired by featherweight. It's supposed to be really light, but it's a framework. It's a minuscule framework. It's more of a starter. It's just a starter. Anyway, feather frame is there for you. You should be able to find it. I've dropped it into the Discord channel, but it's also on GitHub. But if you have any questions, I thoroughly encourage you to reach out and let me know. And it looks like to make that command shift, I have to literally be on OBS. And there I am. I'm back. It doesn't look like we have any. If you have questions, feel free to throw them into the chat. It looks like we're good, though, from everything that I'm seeing. Hi, Matal. Hi, good to see you. And that's it. That's all I got for today. I hope that you are having a wonderful, wonderful time in the program. And if you know anybody who's looking for individualized one-on-one feedback daily and one-on-one mentorship, I certainly hope that you will send them my way. Anyway, without further ado, that's it for me, Chris Courtney, New Pragmatic. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will chat with you tomorrow. Bye-bye.